President Obama's links to nuclear energy. No president dared, for many presidents in the last 4 decades, to start rebuilding nuclear power plants. But President Obama has pushed forward on that. If you can talk about his home state company of Exelon, and also talk about Duke Energy here, Ruth Henry, in North Carolina.
So Exelon is headquartered in Illinois, and it's the biggest owner of nuclear plants currently. And
has been a major supporter of President Obama.
Oh, correct. One of his top fundraisers is on the board of Exelon. Both Rahm Emanuel and David Axelrod have strong connections with Exelon. And the New York Times recently did a piece explaining the excellent access that Exelon and its executives have had to the White House. So money buys access to our politicians, and my concern, since I'm so concerned about what Duke is doing here, is that all of Duke's help to the DNC will give them an opportunity to influence our government in ways that will not solve the urgent problem of climate change quickly enough.
I think it would surprise many to hear about President Obama's close ties to the nuclear industry, because so many of the different movements that elected him in 2008, among them the environmental movement, many in that movement come out of the anti-nuclear movement of the 1980s that ultimately led to the prevention of any nuclear power plant being built in this country for decades. Now the Vogtle plants are being built in Georgia by Southern Power. And what about here, what Duke is trying to do?
So Duke wants to build 2 plants near here. They don't have approval for them yet, but everyone pretty much agrees that nuclear power is now uneconomic. So the only place they're even being proposed is in states like this, where we have a regulated utility and all the costs can be imposed on the ratepayers. The actual utility building the plant has none of the risk. So that's why here, Florida, South Carolina, only in the Southeast, where we have utilities commissions that are charged with regulating these utilities, do we even have new nuclear plants proposed. But of course, those utilities commissions are appointed by the government, and huge sums flow into state government, just like they do into the federal government.
You're a North Carolinian, Beth Henry. Have you had interaction with the CEO, Jim Rogers?
I have. In fact, when I recently spoke at the shareholders meeting and came to the microphone, he said, "You again." I'm that worried about climate change and that determined to do what I can to influence Duke. I do think Mr. Rogers is doing his job, which is to try to make as much money as he can for his shareholders. But it just so happens that that is not in the best interest of the rest of the world.
Monica Embrey, Greenpeace has been protesting Jim Rogers' ties to the Democratic National Committee and the convention here in Charlotte.
Yeah, we have. We think it's really important that corporations and our government have some serious separation. As Beth was just mentioning, making sure that major corporations don't have the access to undermine the best interests of the people here is what we're really focusing on. Duke Energy has had extremely close ties with ALEC, which is the American Legislative Exchange Council, a right-wing bill mill group responsible for passing bills such as SB 1070, the Arizona immigration law, Stand Your Ground, related to Trayvon Martin, but also does an incredible amount of work opposing climate change legislation, opposing renewable energy, and stopping regulations of coal-fired power plants. Here in Charlotte, Duke Energy contributed significantly this past May to help bring ALEC's conference. And we, along with a coalition of folks, including Energy Action Coalition, the Center for Media Democracy, Common Cause, and Credo, as well as others, are calling on Duke Energy to drop their ties with ALEC before the end of the DNC.